Gamer. Twisted Metal. Yes, this is Twisted Metal, everybody. I thought I'd do a review of one of these since, I previously did a review, but I thought, hey, again, like with some other videos, I'm gonna be redoing them, so this will be, a brand new review of, Twisted Metal Black. I don't know if my opinions have changed since the last time I did it, but we'll see. Anyways, though, I hope you guys enjoyed the review, and let's get on with it. So before we get into the plot and anything, and I know I usually do get into the plot, I think it's good to talk about the different menu options you have. So you got one player, which is like, you know, your main single player campaign. You got multiplayer. You need a second controller, so remember that. But yeah, multiplayer, basically multiplayer options. You get all the settings, pretty basic stuff, you know. You got movies, which is basically a way for you to view cutscenes and load games. So if you got like a save file you want to go back to, that's your way of doing it. Within the one-player mode, you also have the option of challenge and endurance. And challenge is basically just, you know, you choose the car, you get an arena, and then you got a bunch of AI opponents. So basically, the regular game, but without like a storyline, you're just doing it. Then you got endurance, which is basically, you know, you gotta fight until you die. So it's like, how long can you survive, sort of thing. Once you select story, you get the option between all the characters. You got Junkyard Dog, you got Brimstone, you got Outlaw, you got Mr. Grimm, you got Roadkill, you got Crazy 8, you got Spectre, you got like a whole variety of vehicles that you can try out. Some of them are locked, so you have to unlock them later, but it is cool that you get the options of all these characters to play as, to be honest. So once you select your character and you get in with the story, each of them have their own little intro cutscene and outro cutscene and middle cutscenes and all that. Basically like the other Twisted Metals, each character has a storyline to them. Unlike the other ones though, it's more, I guess, grim and realistic, one could say, because in this one, they're psychotic, they're in a mental institution, unlike the other ones where some of the drivers were just straight up normal people, like you had regular cop, you had regular like surfer dudes driving a truck. This one, it's like these people are actually deranged, and they're doing it because they have nothing else to fight for. So it's kind of more fitting for the whole car combat game, because it's more like a realistic take on it. And I don't know if I prefer it or not, but I think it's an interesting way to like go into it compared to the other ones, and that makes it stand out as its own thing, sort of. Now, before we get on to the gameplay, I gotta say, I like the little loading screens where, like, it shows, like, text from the characters. It really brings a lot of personality to the game, which I think is cool. But yeah, getting into the gameplay, basically, the whole point of this game is you're driving your car combating. It's your basic demolition derby game. That's how I could really describe it. It's a demolition derby, but if you had weapons instead, demolition derby. They have a good amount of weapons because, like I said, with the characters in the storyline, you have different special weapons too, not just the regular ones, but different weapons that you can utilize to basically just destroy your enemies. It's pretty nice, and I personally like it a lot. Each character has like a different thing, like Sweet Tooth, for example, has like a little machine gun that he'll shoot out, which basically just decimates the competition, and it is such a powerful weapon. Each character, some characters have some pretty ones, but for the most part, each of them have a different creative weapon that works out well. The environments have a very grim feel to them as well, very much representing the theme of the game. So each environment, like, basically looks like Apocalypse Land, which I don't really know, like, if the world that Twisted Metal is in is like in some kind of apocalypse, but I'd imagine it is, considering all these cars are fighting across the world and fucking shit up. So it kind of makes sense, the whole look it has. It's very, if it wasn't like Cars, I would think it's a horror game. That's how weird and apocalyptic it looks, and honestly, it fits the game's tone, so it's not too big of a deal. Although, minor complaint, I do wish that they had more of a variety in terms of color, because, you know, these look cool, like, I like the whole look of them, but it would have been nice to have more of a variety in terms of environments, just a little bit, you know? Like, maybe some levels that look kind of good, but I guess if they wanted to keep the theme of the game, you know, that's your way of doing it. Another thing to note is each level also has destructible environments, which is really interesting because you don't really see like a lot of games with destructible environments, and you know, this is probably one of the first franchises to utilize that kind of mechanic in a 3D game, which is crazy because you can't destroy everything, but there's like a lot of things you could just blow up just for the fun of it, which is really fun to do. So the bosses in this game are kind of in the middle. I don't think they're really bad, but they're not amazing. Like, they're not something that I'd say, oh, it's the greatest thing ever or anything, but they're decent for what they are. The one of note I can mention, though, is like there's a helicopter boss later in the game, which you go after. Not too bad of a boss, to be honest, but again, not much. It would have been cool if they had like different kind of bosses. What I do like is that in the context of the game, they do have the bosses as kind of like the regular cars. Like you're just going in a big arena against them. So that's a cool thing. One elephant in the room I am going to mention though is the difficulty, which it's a hard game, and you know I didn't want to mention it until later, but it really slows down the game for me. Like, it took me a while to get through it, you know? And, like, even, like, recording footage for this review is hard, because, like, I can't do it again. Like, that was a very hard game to beat, so, you know. Here we are now, trying this. But, I do feel like they should have made it a little easier, because this game does feel very hard, even for, like, a gamer that's really good at combat games like I am, you know? It's still a challenge just to get through, and I've heard in reviews that it is a tough game, but I do feel like if they just toned down the difficulty, not too much, but just a little bit, I think it would have been a much better experience to go through, to be honest. Even though I did mention in the pause menu, I do have to say I've tried a little bit of it. The multiplayer is pretty fun. I'm not really able to show it because I don't have anybody to show off footage for, but it was a fun thing. You know, it's your basic car combat multiplayer, so of course you're going to get a lot of entertainment from that. And I did. It was a very fun thing. With that out of the way, though, I guess we'll talk about the final thing that I usually do in every review, which is the music. The music in this game is pretty good. It's kind of mixed with, like, dark, edgy, electronic-type music versus orchestral kind of stuff. It's not my favorite kind of music, but it's good for what it is, so I'll let you guys listen to a few tracks, as I always do. Well, everyone, that was my review of Twisted Metal Black. It's a very interesting game and very dark for the series. And you'd think a series that's already dark in itself couldn't get darker, but this game basically bucks the trend and proves that wrong. In some ways, I like it. In some ways, I don't like it as much as the older ones. But it's a very interesting thing, and I think as long as you're really good at games, which I was only able to do once with this game, then you might enjoy it. But if it's a very hard game, like if you're not good with hard games, I wouldn't play it because it's a very tough one. So go in expecting that. Anyways, though, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. As always, if you guys got any recommendations, be sure to let me know, and I'll try to go through with them. Have yourselves a good one, and I'm out. Peace.